Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thriving Thursday. Welcome, welcome. I hope that everybody is doing okay, that you've had a good week. If you're joining me live or you are listening to the recording later on, hello, thank you for being here. Drop me a note, let me know that you're here. I'm Carla. I'm a life and career coach, and I'm also a full time RV nomad. And on Thursdays, I broadcast from wherever a little 84 square foot casita, little home on wheels, takes us, sharing stories from the road, stories about our travels, and stories and reflections for better living and fulfillment. And if you tune into my show frequently, you may have noticed that I did not have a show the last couple of weeks. And that was because life threw a couple of curveballs our way, one of which was the big Texas winter storm that we had last week that some of you may have also experienced. And if you did experience it, I hope that you and your loved ones are doing okay. And hopefully this week you're able to have a sense of normalcy. We fortunately have returned a little bit to a sense of normalcy. We're back on the beach and it's much warmer. It's much more reasonable Texas temperatures. But that's just how life works, right? Like life throws curveballs our way all the time. And sometimes they're large scale and they affect many of us. And sometimes they're smaller scale and they affect us at the individual level. And they just pop up and they're out of our control, but they just happen. That is part of life. And so my husband and I had one of those small day-to-day annoyances happen this week. And so today I wanted to bring that story to you. I wanted to share that story of what happened because the way that I reacted surprised me and also got me thinking about how we as humans can temper the way that we react to these types of annoying situations that happen, whether they're large or they're small scale. So to share this quick story with you, we're in a campground right now on the water where RVs are parked side by side. And while the spots are close to one another, this campground has been fairly empty this week, at least in the beginning of the week, because a lot of people left, right? People didn't want to be on the beach during the storm. And what that meant was that there was really no need for RVs to camp so close to one another, even if the spaces are close to one another. There was plenty of room for all of us to spread out, have our own space. And when you live in 84 square feet, I promise you, you want, as much space as you can get outside so you can spread out, you can open your door, you can even sit outside. Well, on Monday, this woman drove up with her huge RV. It was a monster compared to ours. And she parked so close to us that her door pretty much opened into our door. And we could hear every voice, every footstep, every tapping, every sneeze that was happening in her camper, almost as if it was happening inside her camper. That's how close she was. And again, mind you, she was parked close to us, not out of necessity, which I totally understand. It happens. It's happened to us where we've had to park very close to someone. It wasn't out of necessity, right? It really was. I don't know why. She had plenty of options she could have picked, where we both would have still had a lot of space to spread out. And so, when I saw her approach us and I saw what she was doing, she was parking right next to us, so close to us. I began to feel that pit in my stomach, that sense of like, ooh, irritation. My blood started getting warmer. And I started to come up with ideas for how we could get her to leave. That's where my head went. I thought, hey, what if we play music really loudly? What if we annoy her? What if I slam the door really, really hard? And those are not very nice things, but that is where my mind went. In other words, my mind went right into how can I make her as frustrated as I am feeling. Why? Why did my mind go there? So, what I want to share with you today is how I think I could have responded. I do know why my mind went there, and I'll share that with you in a second. I want to share with you how I think I could have responded instead of really seeking what was revenge, retaliation, and how those of us that are human beings can also learn to train ourselves to respond in more productive ways when we're faced with these small or large type of annoyances. And what I'm going to teach you is not something that I made up. I'm actually going through two very, very cool coach programs, and both of them have given me different pieces that I've combined into what what I'm going to share with you today. They both really inspired me. So the first step is when you notice that you're getting annoyed, notice what the thoughts are that are creating the feeling of annoyance. So we are constantly creating our realities, both our inner realities, how we feel, and our outer realities, how we behave, based on the thoughts that are happening in our head. So looking back now, right? Hindsight's always 2020, but looking back, I know that the thoughts that came up for me when this woman parked right next to us were, she's inconsiderate. How dare she park right next to us? She must be ignorant that there's all these other spots. Like I made everything that she was doing really very much about how we were the victims of what she was doing, right? And so when you put yourself in that place of victimhood, you feel not only annoyed, but also threatened. And when we feel threatened, we take actions to protect ourselves. And many times those actions don't serve ourselves, they don't serve the other person, they don't serve the situation that we're in. So while I didn't actually play loud music, what I did do was I was slamming my door extra hard when I was going in and out of the camper. And that just is not helpful. That does not help anyone. What that creates is a complete lack of trust between two people that now find themselves having to live very, very close to one another. So that's how the process works, right? We have a circumstance that leads us to a thought, and that thought leads us to a feeling, an internal feeling, an emotion that leads us to an action, which creates a result. Consciously understanding how this process works, it's something that we all, it's just part of how we think, how we operate. But becoming conscious of this process when something annoying happens can make a really big difference between the different options that we have for how we react, what actions we take. So that's one thing, right? But the reality also is that sometimes, even if we know that controlling our thoughts, changing our thoughts can change our actions, sometimes it's really hard to pull us away from those thoughts that are centered on feeling like a victim, feeling like we were wronged, because we're human. So I want to share with you a couple of techniques for becoming not just conscious, but actually changing the thoughts that are creating emotions that we don't want, which can create actions we don't want. So the first one is and this I learned from a coach that I really admire, is to simply tell yourself when you feel that sense of annoyance coming up, simply tell yourself, nothing has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. And what that does is that immediately takes you from a place of annoyance and frustration to neutral. It doesn't bring you to positive, but it brings you at least to neutral, to a place from which you can actually pause, kind of clear the clutter from your mind, and begin to think, okay, what is really happening here? What is really the circumstance? What are the real facts here? And then how do I want to react based on those facts? So that's one simple thought that I personally am trying to practice. Simply, nothing has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. Maybe that will be helpful, just repeating that to yourself. The other thought technique that I've learned from another one of my coaches is to identify 3 gifts that the situation, the circumstance presents to you. Even if you think that there are no gifts, right? I promise you that every situation gives us gifts, because every situation that we go through gives us more information, more data that is going to only make us better and help us respond in a more productive way down the road. Hey, Jen. Happened to me this afternoon. Oh, I'm intrigued to know what happened. So the 3 gifts technique is really helpful. And there's a reason why 3 and not 1. If you just think, okay, what am I learning in this moment? What's the one thing? You're not making your brain work very hard. You're maybe thinking of one thing, and then it's very easy to go back to the unproductive thoughts. But by thinking about 3 things, you're making your brain work much harder, and therefore pulling you away much more effectively from that place of negative thinking, of thinking that you are the victim, that something was done to you, versus seeing it from, okay, what is this situation teaching me? So I did put some thought into what the gifts were that this woman gave me. And so the first thing was that her parking so close to us certainly made me feel much more appreciative of the times when we do have open space. I realize that, like I just kind of take that for granted when we do have a lot of space around us where we're parked. Her parking so close to us and not giving us that space made me much more cognizant that it's not an everyday thing. Appreciate it when we have it, because the reality is that, especially in RV parks, people are going to be parked side by side. So that was one gift, just appreciation for what I have when I have it. The second thing was, it reminded me that this lifestyle that we have on the road is meant to be full of stories, that it can be great, but it's also meant to be full of stories that are not always great, right? That's just how life is. And when we have pain and we have pleasure combined, that is what makes life interesting. Pain is not necessarily always a bad thing. Pain actually has a lot to teach us, and it teaches us to appreciate the pleasure, right? Or it teaches us to watch out for ourselves and protect ourselves. So it made me appreciate that this lifestyle, while it seems like it's always like, oh, how wonderful, all these places that we go to, there are certain times when it's not so great, but those situations are okay because we're always learning from those, and they really highlight the situations that are fantastic, the experiences that we have that are truly wonderful. And the third thing that this woman gave me as a gift was, had she not parked next to us, I would not have had the inspiration to share the story with you today. And really think about this idea of like, why do our brains go to revenge, right? Which is very much a reaction of our thoughts. And so again, our thoughts create our actions. So I'm grateful in a way that she created the situation from which not only could I learn, but I also was able to write about it this week and share it with you on this show. So to summarize, when something happens, really notice your thoughts. The circumstance is neutral. The circumstance is always neutral. Once we put a thought to the circumstance, that's what charges the circumstance, whether it's negative or positive. So notice those thoughts that are coming up, and notice what your feelings are that are coming out of those thoughts, and notice your options that you have, for the actions that you can take. And if the actions and the feelings are undesirable, go back and change your thoughts. You can change your thoughts. One of those thoughts might be, nothing has gone wrong here, or another type of thought might be thinking about the 3 gifts that this particular situation is giving you. Maybe it's a lesson, maybe it's empowering you to show up much more confidently next time. Whatever it is, every situation is just helping you to show up as a wiser and stronger and more confident version of you next time around. All right. I wish you a very happy, thriving Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me. I will talk to you and see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.